United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to tonight's planning board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exit, which is to your left of this room. In the event of an emergency, please move in a calm and orderly manner and fashion down the stairs, and do not use the elevator. The meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record and minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in the order they appear on the agenda. Extra copies, which are at the front of the room. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or representative shall come to the podium, identify themselves, give their address, and present their case. Planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If the case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board. Once all the input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to public input, and the board then will move on to a decision. No further input is allowed at that point. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation, for maintaining social distancing and adhering to the town's best practices as it relates to keeping everyone safe during COVID. Please note that masks will be worn at all times when in town hall. If you need to remove your mask while speaking, as I'm doing right now, it is permitted. We also request that speakers allow town staff time to sanitize the microphone and podium before coming up. With that, Michelle, will you please call the first case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item on the agenda is case number PB 2020-08-1. Upon the matter of request by Premier Sign Systems, acting as agent for Reliant Community Credit Union, for signage approval to replace existing signage with new logo signage on premises 625 Titus Avenue in a mixed-use commercial district.
I'm Laura Baranis from Premier Signs, representing Reliant Community Credit Union. The last meeting,
Your address too, please.
10 Excel Drive, Rochester, New York, 14621.
Thank you.
The last meeting, we were asked to make a few revisions, and we did so. I revised the sign so that it was internally illuminated to the floodlight, which it is like right now, the one that's out there. And then I changed the quantity on the ATMs, which it showed 2 and there's only 1. And those were the changes that were asked to be made, and that's what we did.
Thank you for participating in the workshop. Anything else you want to say to the board? Or?
No?
Okay.
If anybody has a question?
I was just going to ask them. Thank you. Anybody from the board have a question?
I have no questions. I appreciate the applicant making the modifications that we requested.
Seeing none?
The hours of the illumination of the lights, you're comfortable with us imposing the 1 hour prior to opening and 2 hours post-closing?
And then 1 hour prior and then 2 hours after?
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. I am done, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, please have a seat. This is a public hearing, correct?
This is, yes.
Okay. With that, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to address this case?
The new van.
Carrie, would everybody be in the room that was interested in speaking for this?
I believe that's the case. I can double check out in the hallway really quick. We'll do a going once, going twice.
Okay.
Is anybody waiting to speak to the first sign application? Okay, just wanted to double check. You're all set to close. I don't see any speakers.
Thank you. With that, I'll close the public hearing. someone on the board looking to make a motion?
I will, on the case of PB 202008-1, that the application is approved as presented, with the modification that the lighting is extinguished 2 hours after the closing of the business and is reignited 1 hour prior to the business opening.
I'd just like to clarify that this is not a seeker action, it's a type 2, correct?
Yeah, thank you
Right.
for type 2 action for seeker.
Thank you. I would second Mr. Richards' motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Richard. That passes 7-0 and 1 absent. Thank you, and much luck with your changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bernie,
Yes.
just a thought. Do we need to say it passed 7-0 with 1 abstention since,
I was going to ask that myself, since we have somebody filling in. Do I have to mark the absent?
No.
well,
Yeah, so you don't need to mark the absence. You only have 7 voting members.
Okay.
So when one of those spots is filled by the, we don't need to do that.
7-0?
Thank you.
You note it for the attendance,
8'4".
for the purposes of attendance. And just another housekeeping item, just so you know, I did advise the applicants, the subsequent applicants, to wait, and I would notify them when their case was being called. So this may create a little bit of a delay with folks coming in and in between cases. Okay. They're on their way. This is where we need some light music to play in between. Anybody
Okay.
care to sing?
I get to fill out the sheets for a change.
Nate will take care of it for us.
Clear this place out?
Okay to call the next case, Mr. Chair?
Do we need the applicant in the room or no?
They are on their way.
Why don't we
I
give
see
them a
them, they're
second?
close enough. I think if you're ready for Michelle to start calling the case.
Next item on the agenda is case number PB 2020-08-2. Upon the matter of request by BME Associates, acting as agent for Ridge Portland, Rochester LLC, and 1267 East Ridge Holding LLC, for preliminary and final site plan approval for the redevelopment of an existing plus or minus 11,000 square foot building and construction of a new plus or minus 2,500 square foot building with site-related improvements on 1233 and 1267 East Ridge Road in an M manufacturing district.
Please don't forget to state your name and address before you start.
Okay. Yes, good evening. My name is Peter Vars from BME Associates, appearing this evening on behalf of Ridge Portland LLC. With me also this evening is Mr. Jeff Ledoux from DDS, the project architect, and Anthony Gizzi on behalf of the owner-developer. As mentioned, we are here this evening to request preliminary and final site plan approval for 2 properties located at 1233 and 1267 East Ridge Road. The properties are located at the southeast corner of Portland Avenue and East Ridge Road. The properties are zoned M manufacturing. So the first property at 1233 East Ridge Road is right at the corner of Portland and East Ridge Road. It totals about 1.14 acres, and it's currently has the vacant 11,000 square foot former Rite Aid store on the property. The second property is at 1267 East Ridge Road, which is the property immediately to the east. It currently has an 8,300 square foot building, which was the former home of the Ridge Rattan operation, and that lot size is about 0.38 acres. Our proposal is to combine these two tax parcels into one parcel for a total of 1.52 acres. We plan to refurbish the existing 11,000 square foot Rite Aid store into a multi-tenant space. So it will maintain the existing 11,000 square foot footprint and also keep the existing drive-through that's on the east end of the building. The proposed multi-tenants would include 2 restaurants totaling 5,000 square feet and then 6,000 square feet of regular commercial space. On the other property, our plan is to demolish the 8,300 square foot Ridge Rattan building and construct a new 2,500 square foot freestanding restaurant. So our proposal is for 13,500 square feet in 2 buildings on 1.52 acres. We would like to point out that on August 18th, last Tuesday, the town board did issue a special use permit to allow the restaurant uses in this project as provided for in section 235-361H of the town code. So we've prepared the site plans. We made our original application, and subsequently last Monday, we submitted updated site plans to the planning board in response to our discussions with you back 2 weeks ago on August 10th at your workshop session. Along with those updated plans, we included a letter that identified the 14 bullet points we were provided and how the updated plans address those. So when I talk about the site plan this evening, I am talking about the revised or updated site plan that we provided to you. As it relates to the Rite Aid lot, as we mentioned, there's no building footprint changes. We will maintain the existing 11,000 square feet. There will be extensive facade upgrades. You were provided the architectural elevations for the proposed building. And as I mentioned, Jeff Ledoux is here this evening also, where he would be able to answer any questions you may have concerning the architectural upgrades proposed for the Rite Aid building. We are proposing new landscaping throughout the Rite Aid site. The existing lighting would be upgraded to LED lighting. We are providing sidewalk access with a stamped or colored concrete sidewalk from the corner of the northwest corner of the building to the intersection of Portland Avenue and East Ridge Road, the existing sidewalk there. As discussed at our workshop meeting, at that northwest corner of the building, there would be an outdoor patio to serve the restaurant user proposed to occupy the west end of the building. And that patio will be fenced in with a 3-foot high aluminum fence that is called out for on the site plan provided. As we mentioned, we will maintain the existing drive-through and the existing dumpster location. The current chain link dumpster enclosure that is there will be removed, and a new enclosure of a board-on-board enclosure would be constructed in its place as detailed on the site plans. For the former Ridge Rattan site, it will be a complete redevelopment, and as we mentioned, a new construction of 2,500 square foot restaurant building. The big change on that plan is taking into account the discussion we had 2 weeks ago, where we've taken that building and have pulled it forward about 40 feet closer to East Ridge Road. This board expressed concern about the rear setback. Originally, we were looking for a 5-foot rear setback, and we actually had a full parking field in the front of the building. We've pulled this building forward, like I said, about 40 feet, reoriented the parking along the building, and it's done a lot to improve the site plan layout. As such, the building will now be set back 64 feet off East Ridge Road, which still exceeds the required minimum of 50 feet. We are providing a 41-foot rear setback. The original building was at 3.5 feet, or the Ridge Rattan building, and we were originally proposing 5 feet. We have added a new dumpster location here to serve the restaurant, so they won't be sharing the dumpsters. That was one of the comments we discussed 2 weeks ago. We also added a sidewalk connection from the building's patio here up to East Ridge Road, Also in that area, we have provided a bike rack, and we've noted that the patio and outdoor seating area for that restaurant will also be fenced with a 3-foot high aluminum fence as detailed on the plan. We've increased the landscaping throughout the property, again, proposing LED lighting, 3 new pole-mounted lights that would be at a 20-foot height. We have noted that the light fixtures, they will be at a 4,000 degree Kelvin, as was requested for that information. The parking provided on this site is for a total of 81 vehicles. So we did lose 1 space from the original site plan application as a result of this reconfiguration. But in talking with the developers, we're very comfortable that that number of parking spaces with the shared component of these 2 buildings and of these users, that would still be adequate. The code does require 102 spaces based on standalone uses of 6,000 square feet retail, 7,500 square feet restaurant, but we will be appearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals on September 14th to request a variance for that parking. With regards to access, we propose to maintain the existing access onto Portland Avenue that exists today, and then the other access onto East Ridge Road. There are currently 3. Rite Aid has 1, Ridge Rattan has 2. We're going to reduce that to 1 access total, which would be the western Ridge Rattan driveway, so that we're going to take 3 curb cuts, reduce it to 1, because again, with combining these lots, there's obviously shared parking and shared access that will take place. As a result of this redevelopment, the actual lot coverage on the overall properties will decrease. Currently, the lot coverage is just under 89%. With this redevelopment, that lot coverage reduces down to around 87%. We will still need a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the lot coverage, as the code allows a maximum of 80%. But it's important to understand that through this redevelopment, we're actually reducing the development intensity on this 1.5 acres. Other site development components, each building will be served by a new water service. The Rite Aid building will get a new water line off of Portland Avenue. The new standalone restaurant will get a new water service off East Ridge Road. The existing sanitary lateral serving the Rite Aid building will remain, and a new sanitary lateral will be provided to the new build restaurant. Stormwater management, stormwater drainage on the property, it is considered a redevelopment project under the DEC regulations. With the reduction in impervious cover, there's a certain other set of regulations we meet, which basically allows us just to maintain existing drainage patterns. On the Rite Aid site, that area currently drains to the west and enters the Portland Avenue storm sewer system. We're not proposing any improvements to the storm sewers that serve that area, and we'll maintain those. For the standalone restaurant site, there will be new storm sewers put in because of the reconfiguration of the parking area and the building, and that will drain and connect into the East Ridge Road storm sewer system. In summary, as I related to the variances, so variances requested before the Zoning Board of Appeals scheduled for September 14th is we will need a rear setback variance for the existing Rite Aid building. The rear setback in this district is a 60-foot rear setback. The existing Rite Aid is at 38 feet. We'll obviously request a variance for that existing building. For the new building, as we mentioned, we're proposing a 41-foot rear setback. We'll also need a 5-foot side setback variance right at that southeast corner of the building, which does mimic the existing Ridge Rattan building. We mentioned we will be requesting a parking variance to allow 81 spaces in lieu of 102 spaces, and we will be requesting the lot coverage variance at 86.8% in lieu of 80%. But as we mentioned, this is a function of redevelopment. In fact, the redevelopment of this project, not only in giving it a new facade and a new update and new construction, actually reduces the building. The total building square footage on those 2 properties now is just around 19,300. With the proposal, will be at 13,500. So we're looking at a 33% reduction in building on these 2 lots. So as a redevelopment project, this isn't a function of these variances being required because we're trying to do too much on the property. We're actually dramatically reducing what was occurring on that property. With regards to signage, we have noted on the plans the locations of the two existing freestanding signs. There is a sign right at the corner here for the Rite Aid. The former Richard Pan sign is right here at the east end of the parking. It is the intent for both of those signs to remain and be refaced, resurfaced based on their new tenants. But more importantly, we acknowledge that there will be a separate sign package application that will come back to this board once all the tenants are known and identified, and we understand the various requirements on lighting and the information you'll need. But that will be a separate application that will come to you. Last couple of things, as I mentioned, we did back on Monday provide you a itemized letter of the 14 bullet items we received as a result of our discussions on August 10th as to how we identified those. Out of the 14, the only one we did not address was with regards to the landscaping along East Ridge Road. There was a request to consider if we could do something with evergreen shrubs or whatever. As we explained in our letter, the challenge we had there is that planting bed just isn't wide enough, in the opinion of our landscape architect, that it could be sustainable. And they were actually concerned that those plants actually would be very susceptible to damage. As we mentioned 2 weeks ago, the native grasses we have specified have held up very well, especially in commercial applications. They actually are capable of being tolerable, or tolerant, I should say, of road salt. They actually can be a hardy plant material. They grow in thick and actually can provide an effective screen. So we do continue to propose that in that area. With regards to seeker, it is a type 2 action pursuant to section 617.5C 9 and 18, and that is, again, because of the redevelopment component of this and the fact that we are taking two buildings, taking one building, just repurposing it, and taking the other building and actually reconstructing it and reducing it. So with that, did you want to go over any of the architecture or just respond, Jeff? Or? Okay, so we're here to answer any questions you may have about the site plan or, as I mentioned, the building architecture.
Sure. Do any of the board members, why don't we start with you, Alan, because you look like you're ready to go?
Okay, I won't steal everything. Can you just tell me what this concrete area is in front of the dumpster on the current Rite Aid property?
It's just part of the original pad that was installed.
Okay.
So it's there today. It's nothing proposed.
Got it. And dumpsters usually are black. The enclosures are usually black in Irondequoit, and I believe that this board is probably going to require you to do that in both cases.
Okay.
All right?
If that's a condition of the, excuse me, of the approval, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or we can make it in condition, I guess is how I should say it.
What is going on with the lighting near the dumpster, since I've gotten myself into the trash here?
Okay, if you could be a little bit more specific.
I saw the two lights on the back.
Yep.
What is lighting up the dumpster for an employee that has to go at 11 o'clock at night
okay.
in the winter to get there to unlock it or unbolt it?
So there are two existing pole-mounted lights
In the back,
along
yep.
the south property line. So the one furthest to the east would provide lighting of the dumpster area.
Because your plan doesn't say that the lighting's going to go that far. When I look on the lighting plan,
Okay.
all right? I don't think the dumpster needs to be overly lit, but I think it needs to be safe for
Okay.
an employee who might have to go there. Can you just tell me what this drive-through lane is like? Where the queuing's gonna happen and what
So.
you're gonna order and what is gonna
Okay.
happen with that?
So currently, as we said, it's the existing drive-through that is there. So it's there already. It was part of the pharmacy operation. Currently, the tenant that is considering taking the east end of that building is not a user of a not a user of a drive-through.
Right.
However, in some of our initial meetings with the town here, we felt it was best just to leave the drive-through there, because at that time, they weren't sure, but maybe it's possibly a bank could go in there or something. And it was more of, let's leave the drive-through there versus remove it and then have to come back in if they get a tenant that may want a drive-through and have to
So I
start
guess
that.
I'm asking, where's the menu gonna be? Where are they gonna order from? Where are they picking stuff up?
As I said, at this time, the end user isn't planning on using it.
Okay, so you want us to approve it, but without knowing what it's gonna look like?
Well, I don't know if it's
That
a
was
function.
actually one of the comments from the county.
Yeah. Well, to answer your first part first, we're not actually asking for approval of it in the fact that it is already there and has
Right.
been approved. So, so I don't think there is, and I guess I'll defer to whether there's even the need to request approval for something that exists.
So the the special use permit was already granted by the town that covers, and a special use permit would have been granted to the existing building to have that drive-through there. So it's, the drive-through's existence, it means it doesn't need to be taken down.
I guess what I'm concerned about, and it's there, and it's gonna stay there.
So what?
What does the stop line look like? Where's the menu gonna go?
Well, the
Is it-
applicant's indicating that right now, the proposed
Yeah.
tenant would not be utilizing it, so that structure would continue to be there but not be used. So if, this site plan is not showing that kind of operation or that physical use of the space outside of the building, and so nor would not be granted as part of a site plan approval with this application. If at some time the tenant, current or some future tenant wanted to utilize that drive-through facility because it exists and there's a special use permit that allows it to continue to exist, then that applicant can come before the board to say, we didn't contemplate it the last time, but we'd like to use that now. And this is how we're gonna operate, and this is where the stop lines are gonna be, and this is how the site will function.
So that should be a condition.
And I would agree with that's acceptable, and I think that's probably the best approach.
Okay. Is there any, I'll leave this one for Brad actually, because I know he'll ask this one. Type C on the lighting plan, I couldn't find a type C light.
There was originally building-mounted lighting proposed, but that's been removed. So that's what that type C lighting was.
So there's no more building,
At this time, no.
so none of those lights that are on, you showed us in the drawing are gonna be on the Ridge Road side?
Well, the lighting that we're proposing is all pole-mounted lighting at this time,
So there'll be nothing on the building except for the
except for
signs.
whatever is going to be handled with the sign package.
Okay. The only thing I'm gonna get worried about is this traffic stuff that's going on. Your traffic study did not speak to turning southbound onto Portland Avenue out of the West Drive.
Correct.
I'm a little concerned about that, and I'm mostly concerned, and this is an internal function with the overall board on the two projects that are coming before us, that we've seen two independent traffic studies. I don't know what the traffic impact looks like for both studies together. And that's a little concerning to me, and I want to raise that because I think that I would like the rest of the board to hear my concerns and feel out what they are, if they are concerned about it or not.
So Alan, with that, could I ask the attorney to comment that we're allowed to look at both parcels?
Yes, I would agree to the extent the traffic and the access, ingress egress is appropriate. It's similarly appropriate for the traffic study to consider the other project that's before this board and the impact of overall traffic that project would have as well.
And I'm not saying, Mr. Chair, that we're requiring anybody to do a new traffic study. I think that there should be an amendment to their current traffic study that would allow for both projects to be considered. And either the town could go ahead and hire somebody to do that, and bill that back to the applicant, or.
No, the applicant can provide their traffic impact or their traffic study they submit it to DOT for comment. We typically will look to DOT's comments initially, and then our own town engineer will review the findings of the study, and they will verify for this board and for town staff that the methodology, assumptions, findings, and propose either mitigation or
Yeah, I don't care who
options.
does the study.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that both studies are independent and have not taken each other in. If they came to us months apart, we would look at them months apart. But because they're
No,
both
so,
on
yeah, so the,
on
just,
the agenda for one action, basically,
right, my understanding is that Monroe County DOT has provided some preliminary comments with respect to this project, from a traffic perspective, and I don't believe we've received their formal memo in response, and so this is if there are questions that you'd like to be explored, this would be the time to do it.
okay. The Portland Avenue, and I did at the workshop, I believe, wanted to know the impact on that turn lane between Ridge Road and 104, because that's now going to be asked to do a lot of things, and that's actually how I phrased it, I think. So that was my concern, and I can put that in an email if that's helpful.
Well, and I think that you certainly can do that, and we can forward that to Monroe County DOT and to our own town engineer for them to be able to provide that response.
That's it.
Alan, I actually agree with you on that, so just thought I'd share that. Anybody else have any other comments? Mr. Huber?
Do you want this one?
Hello? Okay.
There we go. Nope.
Okay, I think it's working. Okay, all right. Thanks.
Do you want this one?
This is not me.
Okay.
You can try this one.
Might be a battery issue.
Battery.
Testing, oh geez.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question about the, so there's a couple of mature trees that are left on the property, and I looked at your new site plan and tried to imagine the old one, and it looks like there's 2 locust trees on the southwest corner of the property that look like they could be able to stay. I'd like to ask if that's a possibility rather than replanting with new trees. I only say that because a lot of times we ask people to plant new trees and they plant them and then they don't make it, and then that's that. So if we could save the ones that are there,
Okay.
that would be great. The second thing is I saw that you looked at the grasses, and I looked at other grasses that were used, and you're right, they seem to do really well. I looked at grasses on Monroe Avenue in Brighton, where they had done some type of environmental
Correct.
work there, and the grasses have done so well that they're spilling into the street and onto the sidewalk, and they're like 3 feet high, and that was a concern. I know that sometimes when you use them, they can look ornamental, but sometimes they can also just look like overgrown grass. So I don't know if the type of grass that you are using or proposing is the same type of grass, or if it's a different type of grass, and I'm not familiar with what grass was used there, but maybe you guys might know. And then I see that you are addressing the signage by coming back for a separate approval for that. And, then the other left concern that I had is at the workshop we talked about pedestrian access, and I appreciate the addition of the pedestrian access from East Ridge Road to the new building greatly, but the concern about pedestrian access between the 2 buildings doesn't seem to have been addressed, and I'm wondering if you can speak to what could be done there. I'm thinking one fix might be to, as much as I'd hate to do it, but maybe not have the landscaping that's on this sort of end of the, yeah, at least it would be an island of refuge for somebody to stand on. At the same time, I like the landscaping. So I don't know if you have other ideas about how that could be achieved. But it looks like everything else was addressed. So thank you.
I was going to say, we looked at that same scenario, and it was the balance, like, you know, do we give up another parking space, for instance, in here to connect? Because we can connect right through the accessible bay there. I guess, you know, that's one of the things we can look at is see maybe if there is something we can do with that island as it relates, in relation to the landscaping. I'm not sure. I guess what I would say is I wouldn't rule it out. If,
My question.
Yeah, Mr. Huber, I'm sorry, so that's the landscaping you were talking about, was at the top?
Right here.
Mr. Reed?
I have a couple questions. On sheet 05 of the revised set, it shows 2 seating tables in the kind of concrete island in that northwest corner. Yes. Then on sheet 10, it still shows landscaping planters in those areas.
no, it is still to be, it's the landscape plan is removed. It is to be the seating area.
It is to be the seat. Okay, I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that. Okay, thank you. Is that the drive-through? I don't see that showing up on any of the elevations, and I just wanted to question or confirm that that is also going to get facade treatment similar to the rest of the building.
I'll let Jeff answer that then.
I pulled it up here on my, phone, the street view, and it looks like it has the same sort of beige drive-it type material on it as the rest of the building. which is
Yeah,
gonna
it'll be,
replaced.
we had gone back and forth with it there and not there as far as the covered area.
Okay.
But if it stays in its current state, it would get refinished to work with the materials that we're proposing on the new, both at Rachel's and the new at Rite Aid.
Okay. While I've got you up here, I got one more question
Yep,
for you.
yep.
The Rachel's building, the 2 siding colors on the elevations are just listed as to be determined. Can you just, I guess, maybe talk about that and talk about how that relates to the rendering that you guys have?
Okay, that's a good question, because I thought that got updated.
Yeah, it says siding 4 and siding 8, I believe, and one says Kingspan KS Series flat color TBD, and the other says Western rib panel color TBD.
Okay.
I mean, will they be similar to what's shown in the rendering?
It would be, so, in terms of the elevation where it's noted, the Kingspan color that's TBD, which doesn't show up in the rendering, because it's from the back, would be basically a darker version, or charcoal gray, compared to what would be basically the front color that you see. And then the Rachel's top band would be, basically the owner uses a material that has it has a wood finish look to it, and it would be sort of a white gray color is sort of the intended. So I think from the standpoint of the rendering versus, I guess, the elevation's a little more clean showing than it would be. So this is more representative of.
Okay. So the rendering is as relatively accurate as a rendering can be.
Yes. Yes.
I've been down that road, so I
Yes.
feel your
Yes.
pain on that one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That's my
thank you.
questions on the facade. Thought I had something else, but maybe that was it. This is a question that I think the board's gonna have to kick around before we can finalize this, is how we wanna handle lighting and hours of operation, because we've got multiple tenants here. Typically, I don't know if you heard our application that we just approved prior to you guys, we require that lighting, including signage, be extinguished 2 hours after operation and can turn on 1 hour prior to operation. That's a lot easier to do when we have one tenant. So we'll have to kick that around on how we want to deal with that, but that's all I have for right now.
you. Mr. Palermo, any questions?
I'd just like to add to that is that I think the lighting would be important if they were going off at different times, when we're talking about possible pedestrian traffic in between. So I think we need to address that. Other than that, I'm okay.
Ms. Hollenbeck? Anything else? I'm sorry, Mr. Palermo, anything else?
You done?
Are you done?
I'm done, yes, thank you.
I agree with Mike. I think that if you're gonna have people coming in later, we should have more lighting there.
I'm not saying more, I'm just saying that if an end tenant between that white, there should be, until they, you know what I mean. You know,
Yeah.
It's not to create dark spots because a certain tenant has closed at
Right.
7 while somebody else might be open till 10. Correct? That's,
Yes.
I think, what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as we're on lighting, can I just get, did you say you're not asking for any lighting on the building tonight?
At this time, correct. Right now, any lighting would be tied into, like we said, the lighting, or, excuse me, the sign package.
Okay.
So there's not going to be any lighting at all on the sides of the buildings, on any of the walls at this moment? It's only going to be the lights that come off of the poles?
At the present, that is what is proposed, yes.
Even though the rendering shows something different, that's why I was asking.
The rendering does. The application actually has listed in the lighting thing that you have a C, but it doesn't show them anywhere.
So we'll clarify that for the board then.
Okay. My only other question, if I can, is I see places for snow removal on the Ridge Rattan site. I'm not seeing a whole lot of snow removal spots, and it could be that you have it down here and down pat, I just don't see it for the Rite Aid site, and it's a much bigger site. Unless that's all gonna handle it over on the Ridge Rattan site.
What I would say is twofold, is that the fact is, and not that it's the right today is the right answer, is the fact there's none, is the fact that we're actually providing it now, which is that we are able to provide areas for snow storage now because of the reconfiguration. So that's that's what the improvement is.
So it's all meant to go onto the east part of the property?
That's where I would say the majority of it would go, yes.
That'll be interesting.
I'm sorry, could you show us those spots?
Pardon?
Where is it currently listed? Which map were you looking at?
Well, I think right now we're designating that this area here can be used for snow storage. There's areas here that can be used also.
Sheet 5, Mr. Chairman. 05.
It's on 5, map 5, or
Oh, sorry, Gary.
So my misunderstanding, there's landscaping there?
There is some landscaping proposed there, yes.
You gonna put the snow on top of it?
Well, these are the larger trees that we're proposing in that area. I mean, if we got to pull them out, we'll pull them out. But I would hate to do that. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah,
well, you're not gonna do that.
That's not where I was going.
yeah.
We don't want them out.
Yeah. Are those currently existing trees? I'm sorry.
No, they're not. They're new because the building sits there
Building,
today.
yeah.
Right.
His shop actually sits there, I think.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Alan brings up a good point. How are you really gonna put the snow?
Well, I guess then we'll have to look at it and look at reducing our parking further then. But then that becomes a larger variance that we'll have to apply for. again, what we're
Well, it's
doing
not
is we're trying to redevelop, right now we have 19,300 square feet of buildings sitting on that 1.5 acres. We're reducing it down to 13,500 square feet. We're actually increasing the parking from what's currently provided. We're trying to meet the demand of the users. We're trying to, take the Rite Aid building, 11,000 square foot vacant building, and make it viable as it relates to a multi-tenant place. And that actually, I believe, helps the parking situation because you get the shared parking component, that it's likely you will get visitors that may use more than one tenant in that space. The ITE talks about that, a shared parking component in that regards versus this was truly a standalone 11,000 square foot user. So I guess what I'm asking for is maybe is a little discretion on behalf of the board of, like I said, it wasn't the right answer to say, well, it's what's there today. I mean, because, that just because it's what's there today doesn't necessarily mean it's the best solution. So what we're trying to do is find the balance between that of being able to get tenants in there and redo it. We'll take another hard look at what we can do with snow storage.
Where did they put the snow before, I guess?
That, and personally, I don't know that answer. And part of the problem is with it being vacant for so long, probably the last few years, they haven't had to put it anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of council? I'm going to put you on the spot here for one quick second. In a couple other instances in the past when we've had, relatively full developed sites, we've discussed the fact that, well, if it gets too bad, they're going to have to load snow and haul snow out. Is that something that we can condition that, drive lanes and ingress, egress out into roadways and fire drive lanes and so on are maintained clear, or else snow must be, removed from the site?
Absolutely. If those are all reasonable conditions, related to this board's review, what are appropriate considerations under the code, and if that, to meet those conditions, if that's the only way that
Option.
it can be
Okay.
handled.
Do you have any issues with that?
No, and I think the other thing I would offer, and not to have been so, I guess, cavalier in my previous response, is when I say about moving the landscape, it should be moving it. Let's see if we maybe even find a different location for that landscaping, because that may allow that to open up for additional snow storage area, but find a home for those plantings on the site too.
Sure.
There may be, my point being is maybe making an island a little bit larger now allows it to become home to the shade tree versus because of the planting bed width, it could be a constraint.
Sure.
So that's when I say let us take a look at maybe we find a different home for those plantings, those trees, if it can then satisfy both criteria of some snow storage area that doesn't exist today, but also improving and adding landscaping to the overall property that exists today.
Okay, just a thought.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question. So this rendering is as the old site plan, right? So this bed that's right here is the old bed from the old from the
Yes,
last iteration,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? With that, I'll let you,
I was going to add on building lighting, just to clarify
Yeah.
so there will be code required lighting, basically wall packs at each of the, like Zero Sky night, wall packs at the doors on the back. So those egress points will require lighting there. The building lighting that's shown in the rendering would have been an early, I guess, exploration in what, if we were going to provide lighting on the building on the front. And since that, we had made the determination not to be providing ornamental light or, basically secondary lighting on the front at this time. It really, the only lighting that we would be plan on adding would be just code compliant lighting for the egress doors and access doors on the back. So they would be over the door and basically just lighting the path in front of the door.
Any questions on that, anybody? Any other questions? Okay, with that, you can take a seat and we'll,
If I would just like to add one comment about the traffic, because I know that came up earlier. So a couple things. We did provide, within the last 2 weeks, the initial review we received from Monroe County DOT concerning the application, where they were basically just talking about, construction type issues about how to close off the curb cuts and whatnot, those types of things, not necessarily, there was no identification of potential traffic impacts. They were provided the same data that you were, acknowledging that, again, our application process started a couple months ago when we were pulling our data together. We did have a conversation with Monroe County DOT today, okay, as a follow-up to those comments. And they did mention the fact, though, of the next application, and I don't, obviously not here to speak about the next application, but they did acknowledge that they were waiting that traffic study, because I believe there is one being prepared for that application, that they are waiting to receive that, to review that, and that's when they said that that study should include that this redevelopment was occurring. In the county's vernacular is, because when they do their study, they have to contemplate any other projects that are in the planning stage or under construction, and this being it. So they were waiting to see that to render any decisions about how Portland Avenue would operate, the intersection at Portland and East Ridge, and East Ridge in general. So that was a conversation we had today with Brent Penwarden at Monroe County DOT. So that's where we stand today. So for us, he didn't really have any specific traffic items because he recognized what was happening across the street had the larger potential, and he just needed to make sure that somebody was looking at it all. Kind of along right with your question. So that, but again, I can't speak for the county. That is what was in a phone conversation today. Whether that shows up in an official document, I can't add anything to that. Okay?
Thank you. It's you, I'm telling you.
I have a question about that. That's not. I think at the last meeting you were telling us that according to the ITE manual that I believe I got this right, that you think that the traffic will be less at this redevelopment than it would have been at the drugstore because you're not at least under this.
Sounds like it's the operator.
At least under this iteration or this plan, you're not contemplating using the drive-through. So was that right? Did I hear that right? That can you remake that
Sure.
point?
So what our traffic data showed is that we submitted in the engineer's report is that actually there'd be a slight increase in the number of trips generated, but we calculated based on what were the two uses there presently, assuming they were fully occupied and operating, a 11,000 square foot drugstore with a drive-through. There is a specific category for that, and then just a retail business. Right, wrong, or indifferent as to how successful that business was, but that's what we have to do. We took those numbers, then we compared them to assuming the 7,500 square feet of restaurant space and 6,000 retail. Without the restaurant, without a drive-through, yes. And said, what do those numbers look like? And there was an uptick of about 10 trips at the peak hour from like a 105 number to a 115 in that range. That was part of the conversation we had with the county today, because that's what we were talking through, because they said now that the tenants had been identified, that was the purpose of the conversation, and the fact that the two of the restaurant tenants are fast casual, they're not fast food or whatever, that the fact that there's a sit-down component to it of the effect that has on traffic numbers. So that's why they were calling was was to understand what the restaurant users were for, and that we had used the correct ITE land designation for that, which was that type of restaurant versus, same thing, fast food with drive-through, you know, that a Wendy's or a Burger King or something like that.
Thank you. That's kind of what that's what I was thinking, because without the drive-through, the nature is totally different compared to the other project that we're looking at that's drive-through.
Right.
Got a place for snow storage.
With that, any other questions before I open up the public hearing? Carrie, do you have to make any announcement for this one, or?
If you'll let me do the honors of sanitizing before the next person goes up.
With that, I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak to this application, please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Do you want me to check the hallway?
I can go check the hallway. I don't think there's anybody, but I can double check.
I wouldn't want to miss it.
We don't have any takers.
One more time, is there anybody that would like to speak to the board? So Carrie, I got a question to you. I'm not so sure we're gonna rule on this tonight, so should I keep the public hearing open?
Well, that's up to the board to decide. I think that the information that is coming in, that, you know, you can make that determination. I don't know that there's gonna be, the comments that we're waiting for are primarily related to DOT. And so not anything that would significantly impact the operation. They're not gonna, no, this board hasn't identified any major changes to the location of the building or anything that's gonna alter the site and how it looks. There might be some modifications to what DOT says, so I leave it, it's really up to the board and your discretion as to whether we wanna keep the public hearing open or close it.
So anybody else on the board have any comments, or? Sorry, Brett.
I don't see any harm in keeping it open.
I sort of like to err on the side of, in case,
Right.
you know,
More
something
input
changes.
as opposed to less.
So, with that, I'd like to keep it open, if that's okay, and invite the applicant to come back up if you'd like to tell us what you feel the next steps would be.
So, what I would believe is that this board would table the application until such time that, and we'll go through the minutes. I'm sure Michelle will give us a good list of items, but I would ask the board if I miss anything. But we would clarify the site lighting with regards to, as we heard about, adding any of the security lighting to the building plan so that we know where that is. And that includes addressing the concern about possible lighting of the dumpster. We'd update the dumpster enclosure. If we got to come back and there's no need to make a condition, if we can revise the plan at this time. We will clear up the conflict on the plans between the landscape planters versus the fact that it should be patio seating. We'll see what we can find out about hours of operation so we can identify a lighting schedule, as in hours of operation. We'll take a look at the snow storage, landscape, and then the pedestrian connectivity between the on-site users, the two buildings. And then the other thing is, where I hesitate is I understand that there's the question about traffic and DOT. Right. All we can do is try to push that along ourselves as to what role we play, because we're kind of a little bit of the small fish here, but I understand this board's commentary on that.
I think you hit most of them. Did anybody catch any that were missed?
Yeah, can you, confirm that if you're able to salvage the trees on the southwest corner of the lot?
Oh, right, yes, yeah, I do have that noted, but thank you, yep.
And, can you give us some additional details on the grasses?
Sure,
There's
about
height.
maintenance and,
Yeah,
okay, yep, I did note that, but,
So it's the applicant's wish that we table this?
when you put it that way, my wish would be to approve it, but I don't think we're gonna go there tonight, so,
I just wanted to make sure you were in agreement. That's
yes, no, we understand, yep.
all. Do we have to vote on that, Carrie?
Yes.
I'm sorry, say that one more time?
We do have to vote on the tabling it? Okay.
Yes.
So with that, could I entertain them? I'll make the motion that in regards to PB 2020-08-2, that we table it to give the applicant time to come back to address the things that he just listed, unless you want me to reread them all again.
Is it at the request of the applicant or at the request of the board?
I asked
You know-
the applicant said he was okay with it.
I think you should note that the applicant is comfortable with our asking for,
Well, there's a difference here.
I mean, there is quite a difference.
Well, there are several options here. I think, given the way the meeting has gone tonight and the open items, the applicant, considering that, has asked for it to be
Yeah.
tabled so they can address each of these items.
Yeah.
So.
I would second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're gonna table it till you come back with
Thank
those
you.
answers. Thank you.
Regret I take that connectivity. I thought for sure you were gonna ask the no question, Jack.
I had to pull my plans out. Wait a minute.
So, I'm just going to state that, before we call the next public hearing on the agenda, the suggestion is that we take up the town board referral first. The referral is not subject to public comment. It is the town board asking this board for comment on the special use permits. The deputy attorney has indicated this does not need a motion to switch the order. Michelle, can you please read the town board referral?
Town Board referral, upon the matter of request by Bowler Engineering acting as agent for Chick-fil-A, Inc., for a special use permit to operate a restaurant with drive-through on premises 1115 East Ridge Road in an M manufacturing district.
Please state your name and address.
Set up here real quick.
No, I'm sorry.
Are we doing the town referral?
We're doing the
We're
town
doing the town
referral.
referral.
Yeah, so I
that's not-
apologize.
That's open, that's not open to
Oh.
any public input.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
I'm at the board, so it threw me off.
he was just getting himself
like-
situated, so I do apologize for the confusion.
I was confused.
So based on that, is there any discussion? Our options are to make a positive referral or a negative referral. So I'll move.
I believe the board could also make a, recommendation with modifications or whatever the case may be, if
They're never shy, this board, to do that, so.
that would be within this board's discretion to do so.
Any discussion?
Chairman, if you wanted me to address the issues that are requiring the special use permit, that might be a good way to kick things off for the board
I
for
would
discussion.
appreciate if the staff would do that, thank you.
Yeah, so, the proposed development site is located in the M Manufacturing District. That represents a good chunk of East Ridge Road. And as you know, in that district, any restaurant, needs, a special use permit of any size. Also, the other trigger for this site is the fact that it's a drive-through facility, also would trigger the needs. But any type of restaurant with any, whether it's fast casual, with or without interior dining or exterior dining, with or without, drive-through facilities, requires a special use. So every restaurant in manufacturing needs to go to the town board. And as part of that process, in considering the proposed use at the site, which would be replacing a retail facility or an existing vacant retail structure with this new proposed plus or minus 5,000 square foot fast casual drive-through restaurant with dining inside and dining outside as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Based on that, I guess we'll make I put forth a motion that we make a positive referral, that this is the type of business, as Carrie described it, that fits the need for the special use permit. Any discussion on that, positive or negative? So I'll put forward a motion. Do I have a second for a positive referral to the town board?
I would provide a second.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
With that, we'll make a positive referral. There are no additional comments to add at this point. So before the case is called, before the public hearing is called, I want to remind the members of the board and the public in attendance here and viewing at home that our board is only considering the site plan and related issues to the physical development of the land. As limited by the New York town law and the town zoning ordinance, those are the only issues this board can legally address. The planning board cannot deliberate or control the proposed use of the site, which is restaurant with outdoor seating and drive-through facilities. That use requires a special use permit, which will be a matter for the town board to consider. If you have comments about the proposed use, please, those comments should be directed to the town board during its public hearing for the special use permit, which is scheduled for Tuesday, September 15th. Michelle, with that, will you please call the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case number PB 2020-08-3. Upon the matter of request by Bowler Engineering, acting as agent for Chick-fil-A, Inc., for preliminary final site plan approval to redevelop an existing parcel into a new restaurant with outdoor dining and drive-through on premises, 1115 East Ridge Road in an M Manufacturing District.
Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim Freitag with Bowler Engineering, here on behalf of Chick-fil-A Inc. for the application.
You can go ahead, give your
Start
presentation.
talking to us.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, would you like me to give a brief summary of the project? Is
Please.
that what you're looking for? Great,
Thank you.
my pleasure. Thanks, Ms. Ivers. So as I stated, Tim Freitag with Bowler Engineering. Here virtually on the line, I also have Clip Matson with Chick-fil-A Inc., Dave Everett with Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna acting as land use counsel for the project, and Amy Dake with SRF Associates, who is the traffic engineers for the project. They wish they could be here this evening, but due to some travel restrictions, remote was the only way they could attend. And should I remove this for my presentation or keep it on?
If it makes you more comfortable, since you're speaking, you can remove it.
Excellent.
But if you
Thank
do move, please put it back on.
Will do. So we're here to introduce our application for the redevelopment of 1115 East Ridge Road here in the town of Irondequoit. We attended a brief planning board workshop to introduce the project, but we're here tonight to host the public hearing. So I'll go through the site plan one more time for the board and the public's benefit. We've submitted a site plan review application and a special use permit for the project. We're currently pursuing the special use permit with the town board and here today for site plan review with the planning board. As Ms. Ivers indicated, we're located within the M manufacturing zoning district where the restaurant use with drive-through and outdoor dining requires a special use permit and the restaurant use itself, site plan review. We've got an existing developed but currently sitting vacant site as part of the Home Depot Shopping Center at the intersection of East Ridge Road and Portland Avenue. Here before you is just a site aerial showing the location. There's an existing about 18,000 square foot building on site, formerly known as Staples Retail Center. We're proposing to demolish the existing building and bring new life to this site with a 5,000 square foot restaurant with drive-through. We'll be decreasing the building lot coverage from 18,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet. We'll be significantly increasing the green space on site by approximately 22%. The majority of the site is covered with pavement and parking and building today, so a great improvement. There will be approximately 110 indoor seats and 20 to 24 outdoor dining seats. Typical operations, it's a Monday through Saturday restaurant use, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. There'll be 8 to 10 employees on shift at one time. An opportunity for 100 to 120 jobs here in the community to support this restaurant operation. Here before you is a blown-up colored version of the site plan. It shows our site plan layout. We've got the building in the northeast corner of the site with the parking situated off to the south and west sides. The drive-through entrance is located in the southeast corner of the property, and traffic patterns will circulate in a counterclockwise direction around the building for the drive-through. This layout really maximizes the stacking capacity for the drive-through use, and it also provides ample parking that's necessary to accommodate the use, and it also shields that parking from the street off to the side and the back of the building. The drive-through is designed to support 20 vehicles within that drive-through. We've also got additional accommodation for vehicles heading into the drive-through, moving slow, or additional stacking capacity on site within the parking field before any stacking would back up onto the adjoining Home Depot premises or even onto Portland Avenue. So the location of that drive-through entrance is really critical to the circulation efficiency of the site and the drive-through operations.
The layout generally complies with the zoning ordinance. There is a pending variance application for a front yard setback to the drive-through canopy. Over the two menu boards that are proposed, there is a considered structure per the town code over top of those menu boards to provide weather protection for both team members who may be doing face-to-face ordering at the menu boards, but also to patrons with their windows down. This is located up closer on the east side of the site, up along Portland Avenue, and I'll point it out. That setback is proposed at 22 feet, while 50 feet is required per code. As regards to traffic, here we've got some existing stores built in upstate New York over the past few years. SRF Associates has collected some traffic data at other facilities here, a location known as in Greece, New York, and Cicero, New York, to provide a baseline for anticipated traffic generation here at this site. Full traffic impact assessment was submitted as part of our project, summarizing some of that data that was collected. Overall, the traffic report concluded that the proposed project is going to have no significant impact on the traveled corridor of Portland Avenue and East Ridge Road, with one minor mitigation element, and that's the installation of a right turn lane as you're leaving the Home Depot Shopping Center to Portland Avenue. I'll point this out. So today, that right turn lane does not exist. It is one lane exiting in all directions. So as part of the traffic mitigation recommendation, the installation of the right turn lane would help guests maneuver onto Portland Avenue here. We also have pedestrian traffic connectivity proposed for the site and improvements to the overall Home Depot Shopping Center as well. Based on some preliminary planning board feedback, we reassessed the pedestrian connectivity to the site. Two areas we have to connect pedestrians to our building, one from Portland Avenue right-of-way and one from Home Depot Shopping Center there. So out front, along Portland Avenue, we've revised the sidewalk connection out there to cross the drive-through at a stopping movement. Previously, we had a mid-span crosswalk through the drive-through that was a traffic safety concern. Here, we've shifted that to right in front of the menu boards, a natural location where vehicles will be stopping to place an order. And we've positioned that crosswalk in front of those cars. So again, you have an appropriate crossing for pedestrian traffic. Secondly is the Home Depot connection off to the west of our site. We've added a crosswalk off that shared access drive right in front of that stop bar and stop movement, again, to connect patrons from the Chick-fil-A premises and Home Depot site. We've submitted some architectural elevations as part of this application. We've got a brick facade, two-tone color with glass across the site. We've added some material labels to those elevations to further depict what's proposed here. On those elevations, depict some wall signage that's proposed for the project. We've also submitted a separate signage package that includes the proposed signage for our site, anywhere from the ADA signage all the way to a proposed monument sign out front of our building. And then we also included two details showing the existing Home Depot freestanding signs that formerly had a space for Staples. And we're going to be just rescreening the Staples piece to Chick-fil-A. The proposed project is going to connect to the existing utility infrastructure that's out on site today that supports the former Staples building. All utilities are available to the property. We'll have stormwater management proposed on site in accordance with New York State DEC guidelines. And there is also proposed site lighting. Some preliminary feedback at our planning board workshop. There was some concern with the intensity of the lighting underneath the drive-through canopy. Previously, we had somewhere in the range of 40, 45-foot candles underneath that drive-through canopy. Those were reduced by more than half to 18 to 20-foot candles. Again, it's a little brighter area where you have team members with a face-to-face interaction with the drive-through patrons, with menus in their hand, placing orders. And again, you want these team members visible at night for the drivers within the drive-through. That lighting plan was expanded to include some foot candle contours beyond the property, up along Portland Avenue, to further depict what light spillage may look like in this area. Very minor, and there are some street lights along Portland Avenue in this area for the bus stop that's located out front of our site and the pedestrian sidewalk along Portland Avenue on the west side. So that's really the synopsis of our proposed site plan. Again, we're here to continue the conversation about our site plan review process, answer any questions the board or the public may have on the project, and to continue the conversation of our redevelopment opportunity here to bring new light to this currently sitting vacant center. So, Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'll turn it back to you and the board for any questions or comment.
Thank you. With that, does anybody on the board have any questions? Ms. Hollenbeck?
I have to say I'm very concerned about the traffic issue up there. We already have a problem with traffic up there. Have we gotten anything from DOT yet?
It's, the application's under review by Monroe County DOT. We're awaiting, their comments. So as soon as those are received by the town, they'll be reviewed by, they'll obviously be forwarded to this board, but we'll also have our town engineer take a look at the comments and provide a memo to this board as well.
Okay, one concern is that we got Wendy's in front of this, and they have constant cars lined up to get in there, which end up out in that road that's in front of Staples. What would be your intention if you run into this problem when you have Chick-fil-A?
So my understanding is,
Probably need a microphone if you're gonna.
yeah. So my understanding, the question is, what are we going to do about the concern for patrons entering Wendy's from Portland Avenue?
Yep.
Is that correct? Okay. So today there's one single lane coming into the shopping center there to support Wendy's, Staples, Home Depot. We will be installing 2 lanes. So anybody stacking and slowing down to enter the Wendy's, I'm not sure the stacking is going beyond Wendy's. I think people are just slowing down and taking their time to turn into that tight site. We'll have 2 lanes there. So the second lane would be free and clear of any potential buildup from the Wendy's site.
That's all for now.
Okay. Mr. Palermo, any questions? Mr. Reed?
A couple questions and a couple comments. I see that the applicant provided a packet for lighting information and lighting cut sheets, which I appreciate because we asked for that. I would ask that we clarify, or maybe you can explain if you know the answers today. We have 3 different color indexes on our lights. And I understand that the lighting under the canopy is kind of the whitest light, and I'm presuming you're going to tell me that's because people are going to be standing there and reading things and so on. But can you explain why we've got 3 different light colors going on out here?
Sure. So the question is concerning the temperature of the lights. We have proposed 3,000 K, 4,000 K, and 5,000 K lights throughout the site. The 5,000 K, you are correct, it's underneath the canopy. The 5,000K is a little bit brighter light, purer light for visibility to people who may be walking in that area. The site lighting is the 4,000. Again, we've got traffic in that area for movability and pedestrians walking from the parking spaces to the building. And then along the building, we've got the 3,000K, a little bit of softer glow. It reflects the color tone of the building a little bit better because it's a little yellower light, where the aesthetics of the building are that brown tone brick.
Okay. And can you also talk, while we're discussing lighting here, I see that the canopy lights, which you've reduced the intensity of, and I greatly appreciate that, but I see a note in the comments that says those lights are dimmed to 40% output. So what assurance or what safeguards do we have that those lights stay dimmed at 40% and we don't end up with the 40-foot candles that we're concerned about?
Yes, so that is correct. It's the same fixtures. There's just a dimmer switch essentially that would be cut off to regulate the output. And there's handheld devices that we can go out and measure where that dim measurement needs to be. And then we could come up with something with the building department to either lock in that switch to have consistency and make sure that the operator or any team member doesn't accidentally push that switch up a little bit higher.
Okay. Carrie, I assume that's something that we can discuss further if we get down the road on this project, that we can talk to the building department about?
Correct. We could make a note of that at the building level for sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, I also see a relatively complete signage packet here, so I assume you are asking for full approval on all signage if we were to grant any sort of approval on this project now. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is one piece that we are still working with the planning department to clarify in regards to the off-premises signage for Home Depot and replacing those staple signs. So we'll
Be my next
continue
question.
working with the planning department.
Okay, so we're still waiting on
clarify that.
clarification on that approval from
Yeah,
previous.
we're still checking our records to determine if past approvals might have granted the ability to have that panel changed for this current tenant.
Okay. Okay. All right. And my only other question, I guess, right for this second is, we discussed car queuing at the workshop meeting on site, and I see that you've added car queuing in the actual, what I'll call the drive lane area of the site. Have you done any sort of investigation or sort of calculation as far as how many vehicles can actually be queued beyond just that drive lane area in through the parking drive lanes and so on? I think it might be helpful. I know myself personally, and I think we've received a couple of resident comments already concerned about things that we're seeing out at the grease location where things backed up onto the road. And I think this site certainly affords much more, off-road queuing. But it would be probably helpful to somewhat quantify that. Maybe we can take some of that queuing cars that are shown on your drawings and continue them further so that we can actually see, how many vehicles would be queued before we'd ever even hit a road.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of thing.
We can give maybe a dimension of how long on-site, and we can also utilize the access drive between us and Home Depot.
Right,
Before any cars would interfere with existing traffic patterns on Portland Avenue. Compared to Greece, I know everybody here is probably familiar with the Greece site. This is a 2.2 acre site. Greece is 1.2. We've got 68 parking spaces proposed. Greece has 55. We've got a double lane drive-through entrance with a 30-foot wide drive aisle that could accommodate 2 lanes of additional stacking beyond the drive-through entrance to accommodate any surcharge in vehicles. We're within a shopping center here where Greece isn't. It's neighboring residential district. Here's a shopping center that has, more parking out in front of Home Depot and shared opportunities for overflow parking should we ever need it. But Chick-fil-A is not concerned with that. They're okay with that 60 to 68 number for on-site. So it's really a different animal than that Greece location. And it's really a great site for this use, and it's larger than we need. We've got 22% increase in green space. We're able to accommodate on this site in addition to supporting the proposed use.
Okay. I do have one more question. We also talked at workshop, and I appreciate that you guys looked at removing, or not removing, but changing the location of the crosswalk that crosses through the drive-through area. I don't see anything on here, and I don't think I'm missing it, but we talked at the workshop about the possibility of a raised crosswalk or some sort of a way to really ensure that traffic slowed down. Am I reading this correct, that this is just showing striping across there?
That's correct. Previously, we had a mid-span crosswalk here. Rather than implementing a raised crosswalk that could be potentially a trip hazard for team members who are out walking the perimeter of this drive-through, doing that face-to-face interaction that Chick-fil-A does to help speed up their level of services, we looked for an opportunity of crossing where a car is already going to be stopped. So by moving that crosswalk in front of those menu boards, you have a vehicle in a stop position who's going to be able to see those pedestrians crossing across that walk. The crosswalk will be, striped with the appropriate crosswalk material, the white striping, with adequate signage as well.
Okay, I'll see what my other board members think, but we may want to require something more than just striping, but I'll let everybody else comment on that. Thank you.
Mr. Richards?
The Z2 lighting that was referred to, that's going to be at 5,000. That's a pretty white light.
5,000 K underneath the
Yeah,
canopy
we
is
tend not
proposed.
to
That's right.
encourage anybody to do it that brightly unless it's absolutely necessary. The traffic, I've stated it before at the earlier application. I'm going to request that the county look at the entire project, including yours and the other project on Portland Avenue. We're asking a center lane to do a lot more than it was ever really designed to do. And that will hold me up from helping you today with what you need done, but maybe the other guys can help you out here.
Mr. Richards,
Yeah.
did the applicant state that SRF is on the phone?
They are, yes.
Does SRF want to comment on that at all,
Yeah.
or have any further information
That
that
would
might
be
be helpful?
helpful. I forgot that they were there.
Sure.
Even though they're on the phone, you do have to identify who would be speaking.
And
It's supposed to work easy.
Tim, for the benefit of our folks doing the recording and folks here in the room, you're going to awkwardly have to hold the speaker of the phone up to the mic to see. And if it doesn't work, because we are still awaiting comment from Monroe County DOT and our town engineer, excuse me, there will be an opportunity to have a response from the traffic engineer on that for the applicant if needed.
Yeah.
So, hi, Amy. Are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Great. The planning board has just asked the question in regards to traffic. They'd like us to consider opportunities for assessing the project up at Rite Aid in the previous application in front of the board, and how that may impact traffic up along this corridor. Could you give a brief summary on the traffic study, what was analyzed as far as our access with Portland and the signalized intersection that might be adjusted by the Rite Aid development? And Mr. Richards' major concern is in regards to the center turning lane on Portland Avenue,
Yeah.
and if that may be impacted by both projects. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone. If you could just kind of summarize your thoughts, that'd be great.
Please introduce yourself to.
Hang on 1 second. Amy, 1 second. Okay, please start by identifying yourself.
Okay, my name is Amy Dake. I'm the Senior Traffic Engineer with SRF Associates. We did prepare a traffic impact analysis for the Chick-fil-A site. We looked at the intersection at Portland and Ridge, and we also looked at the driveway intersection on Portland Avenue. I did not get a real good look at the site plan for the project that's going in where the Rite Aid is. So let me first start by saying when we do a traffic impact study, typically we look at any project that has been approved or under construction in the project area that would affect traffic. So that's why this project normally wouldn't have been included and was not included in this traffic study. However, being that they are so in such close proximity and certainly will affect one another, it would probably be a good idea to take a look at them in conjunction. So that being said, I don't know, it looks like I'm looking at an aerial right now of what's out there now, and there's a driveway just to the north of the Home Depot driveway. Are they going to be combining that access with the parking area to the south?
On your site?
And on it looks like Isabella Graham Hart School,
So I think that
whatever that building is.
I'll interrupt to answer your question, Amy. The application at 1233 and 1267 East Ridge Road is also still under review by Monroe County DOT, and so any recommendation they may or may not make with regard to access to and from Portland for that property is still under review, and so we don't have a clear direction on that or any information related to access management or access control from Portland. We are aware of the proposed closures along East Ridge Road that's going to consolidate what is now currently 3 points of ingress-egress on East Ridge Road will be consolidated into one. And so this might be an opportunity to coordinate a conversation with Monroe County DOT and both applicants potentially.
Okay. Because right now it looks like that Rite Aid project, that site, would have their driveway offset to the north of the driveway that's currently there for Home Depot. So any traffic that would be turning left into either the Rite Aid site or into the Home Depot driveway would not be in conflict with each other because it's what we call a positive offset. The two driveways are offset such that there's no conflict. There could be a conflict with left turns exiting because they'd be crossing each other.
Yep.
So I think the
I
recommendation.
don't know if that kind of...
I think it does, but I think the recommendation here is we need to have a conversation with Monroe County DOT in regards to both projects and how they can work together to ensure there's no traffic implications of the two projects at this area.
Yep, and we have submitted our traffic study to Monroe County DOT, so that is currently under review.
I do have one additional question, and it's just a silly question. When you said south of 104 that you looked at the Portland traffic, how south of 104 was that?
Could you hear that, Amy?
No, I didn't. What was that?
The question is, how far south of Portland Avenue?
Of 104 on Portland Avenue, did you look at the traffic?
How far south of
At the
104
hospital.
along Portland Avenue did we look at traffic?
We didn't look at anything south of 104. We looked specifically at Ridge Road in Portland and Portland and the driveway.
So the two intersections that were assessed was here?
Well, it says, note, this data was collected south of New York 104. I'm assuming that, and it's in description to the Portland Avenue. It could be that she just needs to refamiliarize herself with what I'm reading.
We'll take a look at that.
Yep.
Amy, there's a section that talks about traffic count data that was collected.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take a look at that report and just provide a response of where that was.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. You're asking about the DOT traffic data. Because when DOT does a traffic count, it spans a certain segment. So that segment runs from, let's see. That segment runs from the city line up to Ridge Road, so I could look and see exactly where that count was taken. That's a count that New York State DOT took in 2018.
I think more to the point, though, when you guys understand it, that we would like to get some interaction between your application and the county in addition to the other application, and find out what that means to the usage as it currently stands and what it will mean with full build-out.
Sure.
You good?
I'm good.
Ms. Murray, any questions?
I'm okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Huber?
I want to reiterate Mr. Reed's comment and concern about the, can you hear me?
Yep.
About the crosswalk on the drive-through. I think that needs to be something significant because it's a drive-through. And I think the thing that we liked about the raised crosswalk would be that it might help a vehicle to feel uncomfortable stopping there because it may position the vehicle in an awkward angle and encourage them to stop before it or after it rather than, I just don't think people are going to pay any attention to the stripes. And we looked at other ways to bring pedestrian access into the site, but really weren't able to come up with anything that was feasible. There's one mature tree on the west side of the property between between the existing Staples and the Home Depot. It looks like that should be able to be salvaged. I'm wondering if you can look into that. Yeah, that's it. Then you changed the trees, so thanks for doing that. And then are there any variances required for this? What are they?
Sure. There's one pending variance application for front yard setback to the canopy.
Yep. And then the green space, so you said that you increased it by 22%, but what's the total impervious coverage?
There's a table on the site plan. I should be done with that. Oh, I've got it right here.
70.2%.
70.2%. Okay, great. And then I want to, so there's, on the traffic study, I think Mr. Richard got two of the things that I was also wondering about, which is, yes, where on Portland Avenue was that number taken? Because Portland Avenue north of Ridge and Portland Avenue south of Ridge are different places. And then the turning lane capacity is a real concern. I myself been in situations when two vehicles from opposing directions are trying to use the shared turn lane for opposite things. Nobody's doing anything wrong, and really can come into a conflict because you have a number of businesses there which are all going to be using that same center turn lane in real close proximity to each other. And if one car, you might be able to have a couple of cars using those turn lanes in opposing directions for individual businesses, but if there's any sort of stacking in that turn lane while one pulls up behind the other one waiting for them to turn, there could be a significant problem. So I'm really interested in hearing about the capacity of that turn lane. And then the other thing that's concerning on the traffic study is the level of service for vehicles exiting the driveway onto Portland Avenue and trying to make a left-hand turn. It said you went down quite a bit in the level of service there, and then with the mitigation you were able to improve it, but it still was not favorable. And then if I'm reading this traffic study right here in the appendix, I think what it's trying to tell me is that 40% of the vehicles who are exiting onto Portland Avenue are going to want to make that left-hand turn. Is that right? And that's a lot of cars that are going to be hitting a really low level of service. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I also think that that turning lane could make that worse, because if there are cars waiting in the turning lane to come in, and then there are cars leaving to make a left-hand turn, if there's even one car in that turning lane, it's going to prevent that car who already has a poor level of service to make that left-hand turn. It's going to make it even more difficult. So I don't know to what degree that's been taken into consideration. And then there was a reference to the Dunkin' Donuts traffic assessment, and I think I raised this at workshop, that I remember watching those Dunkin' Donuts meetings, and everybody said that there wasn't going to be a problem with Dunkin' Donuts, and that they were going to move them through the queue, and this was not an issue. But I'm worried about using that Dunkin' Donuts as a traffic study, as a data point, because I think that didn't work out in reality the way that people thought it was going to work out on paper. So I worry that maybe that's a flawed place to pull data from. And I think, the only other thing is, I saw the pedestrian access was added to Home Depot. I think that's really important. I appreciate that. Generally, we've been asking for the crosswalks to be stamped in dyed asphalt or a concrete pad of some sort, because we want to make sure that they don't wear away.
I don't have anything to add. I have board covered it. Mr. Reed, do you have something?
I just have one additional comment after fully reviewing this signage packet that's in here. I did recognize on the site plans that were originally submitted that there was a flagpole called out, but I'm now seeing in the signage packet here, and while I fully support having an American flag and a flagpole here, I think it's great. I'm recognizing that this is called out as a 50-foot tall flagpole. And I'm wondering, from town staff standpoint, does that height trigger anything?
So the flagpole is, if it is for the American flag, I believe there are national standards that come into play, and I don't believe it's subject to town zoning approval. So we would have to double check.
Even the height of the pole?
I believe, I may be wrong, and so I'm not going to comment further and have it be on the record, because I'm going to be wrong. I would like to do it in private. So let me double check. I believe there are national standards that apply, and I'm not sure if zoning can, I'm not sure. So let me find out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Anybody else? Any last minute?
Will that flagpole be lit?
Lead?
Lit.
Oh, lit.
There's also national standards on that, so.
Yeah.
There are.
It's gotta be different.
I can follow up with that answer.
Well, it can be lit or it can be removed.
There's nothing shown on the lighting plan, as far as I can see, for anything that's lighting it.
So if it's going to be lit, it should be on there. If
Sure.
not,
I can look into that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'll bring it up again about the traffic issue up there. That's a corridor for many ambulances and police cars. And if the traffic is a stop, it's gonna create a big problem, and I'm sure the traffic is all gonna be stopped waiting to get in there, if it's like the other stores.
Anything else?
I saw on the traffic study that you had taken your counts at the Cicero store and at the Grease store, right? A couple of months after it had opened and it was popular, and you had reduced them by 10% as a result for this development, which sort of makes sense to me. I'm wondering, so you took those traffic counts a few months ago at Cicero and Grease. Have there been subsequent traffic counts further out from their opening that either substantiate the idea that they are reduced by 10% or don't substantiate, like, how do you qualify that they reduced by 10%?
Yeah, so we looked into transactional sales from Greece and Cicero after 3 months of opening, and percentages dropped 30 to 40%. So the honeymoon period does last, that first month. Here it's going to be different, third to market, very different impact for grand opening, but grand opening, is a different conversation where we're trying to plan for the next 30 years here. So that's a conservative
estimate.
approach. And one thing in the traffic report that's further conservative is it doesn't account for pass-by trip generation. And what that is the fast food restaurant business relies on the existing traffic that's out there today for the majority of their customers. So you typically apply a 50% pass-by trip percentage for quick serve restaurants because half of the traffic is already on the road. They're just stopping at your site because it's convenient on the way. Here we didn't apply that, again, to do best practices and look at the potential mitigation that's needed for that first 6 months period if we do see that honeymoon period, because it's going to be a dedication, or it could be a dedication use or a use that draws people to drive there for the first couple months and not that pass by.
We've seen similar things with other developments, which we've gotten the first time. I remember Sonic. It really was busy for a couple months, but now you can drive right up.
One follow-up item to a couple comments that I heard tonight that I'd just like to get some more feedback on. Alternative approaches is to this crosswalk within the drive-through. We do have safety concerns with an elevated crosswalk that close to where team members are going to be walking back and forth through that face-to-face interaction. The team members have iPads with them taking orders at the drive-through, which really helps speed up the service of the drive-through and gets people ordering quicker and moves traffic in faster. So it's a very efficient process having team members with iPads out in the drive-through. But the minute you implement more curb or fluctuations in topography while team members could be potentially looking down at their iPad is a concern to Chick-fil-A from a safety perspective. And the whole idea of adding the raised crosswalk is for pedestrian safety. So maybe there's another mitigation measure that we can implement. I liked your suggestion over by Home Depot doing different color, pavement, potentially dyeing it or concrete versus asphalt in case the striping does erode away. So what if we poured, a separate pad for that crosswalk that was a different color or a different tone of the concrete than the drive-through versus an elevated surface?
My concern about that is that I know for reasonably sure there's probably going to be a vehicle there, even when it's not terribly busy, right? They're going to order, and then that's generally where everyone waits, even when it's not busy, is between where you've ordered and where you go to pay. So my concern is a vehicle stopped on that area, where I don't have that concern as greatly over in this other area, because as your documentation has indicated, I think you expect at most like 19 cars to stack. So it's, according to you, unlikely that there's going to be a car stacked up there and stopped. But here, I would like to do everything that we can to make it uncomfortable for a vehicle to stop there. And unlike other places where we make people put pedestrian crosswalks, I have really good assurance. I'm reasonably certain that this one's going to be used. And we can tell that because looking at the aerial photography that there's a desire path that's going across there, that people who are coming from Portland and trying to get up to Ridge for whatever reason aren't likely to go up to the corner and move across. They're going to cut through the Home Depot parking lot, which was why that pedestrian connection was important for us. And so I'm reasonably certain that that's going to be a traversed crosswalk. So I think we have to come up with some type of solution to get people through there safely. And even this was sort of not one that we loved because it was pushing them through the drive-through. So if there were a better way, if you could not put them through the drive-through, that would be the number one solution. But I feel like putting the raised crosswalk is a mitigation already. So to not have it raised is mitigating a mitigated solution. I think what might work is bringing the sidewalk down along the side of the drive and running it over to Home Depot there is a possibility, but no matter what, you're gonna cross that drive-through somewhere
Yeah, they're
to
gonna,
get to the
and they're still
restaurant.
gonna go the quickest,
That's right.
easiest way. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's just to get the driver's attention.
That's right.
It's not there for the, and do your, staff members, that's a menu board right there, right? Are they taking the order at that point? Or, north of that or south of that?
It could be anywhere depending on traffic, if they need to pull vehicles forward.
Well, they wouldn't take it right there, right? Because you can place it over a microphone to, somebody waiting on the inside. Yeah.
The majority is gonna be behind that menu board. But two things just to continue the conversation and try to strategize best approach here, because we're all considering safety.
Right.
Every solution, we just want to analyze safety here, is two things. One is it's a merge point here. So you've got both menu boards merging into the one lane, so nobody's going to pull ahead unless there's space to do that. So, and they're going to be blocking the menu board behind them, so they're not going to pull ahead until that next car in front of them has moved. And if they do, like you said, block the lane, they're stopped. Right? The vehicle is stopped to where pedestrians are going to walk. It's not a crossing that could be at the drive-through exit where people are going to roll through that stop sign and be moving to try to exit the site. So I understand the concern, but it's at an area that the concern is when a vehicle is stopped, not moving. So that might help, with some of those concerns.
I'm listening to what you're
I know.
saying, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I have to agree with Mr. Huber. I'm not totally convinced, and I'm not totally convinced about the safety concern of a tabled crosswalk there. When, if I'm looking at this right, it appears that there's essentially sidewalk and then a curb all the way along that sidewalk up against the edge of the drive lane. So there's already a potentially 5 or 6 inch step the entire way across there. So to add a tabled crosswalk at 5 or 6 inches that matches that with sloped sides so the car can drive over it, I don't see the safety concern, but that's my 2 cents.
I also think that the employees will become familiar with that area. And a pedestrian may be crossing that area for the first time, and is more likely to be crossing the area for the first time, where someone who works there will
Right.
figure that out quickly if they don't. You don't want them to fall, but they're going to have more familiarity with the site.
Yeah. I'll take this good feedback back to Chick-fil-A. They have experienced this across the country. They wouldn't be bringing up their concerns if there wasn't any. I still trip over my stairs at the house, and I'm familiar with where those are too.
Sure, but
So-
just remind them that there's a curb that entire length of the sidewalk. So that there is a step for the 500 feet or 300 feet of sidewalk that's already
Yeah,
there.
I understand it, but again, that's expected of the curb, but we understand it's a concern. We'll take it back and look at it and see what the best viable option might be.
The only thing that I know we didn't discuss tonight was the hours of lighting, and we're going to be putting a restriction on them.
Was there confirmation of how, it's typically after business close or
Right.
30 minutes or an hour after business close?
Yeah. 2 hours.
2 hours?
Did you already state what your hours operations usually are? Or?
Yeah, he did.
6 A to 10 P.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Monday through Saturday.
Correct.
Where's the monument sign going? Could you just clarify that?
Yeah.
Right there.
And that monument sign's going to have a changing message on it. That's probably even more reason to have a tabled walkway there. Driver's going to be looking at that at the same time.
Oh, I see, more distraction
Yeah.
of some sort. Maybe it can read, "Watch out, pedestrians crossing."
That would be perfect. You're reading my mind.
you got a bunch of shade trees on here. I thank you for that. I noticed that there's a very astute gentleman at the county who also pointed out the loss of shade trees along the thing, and I understand that I can't advocate for them because of the additional lanes that are necessary for all the cars. You said yourself you're increasing the green space. You got a lot of room there. Can you look into one-for-one replacements on those trees? It looks like there's enough room to plant new ones just a little bit further back.
The trees that
Yep,
up there?
yep, because I guess we can't keep them,
Sure,
unfortunately.
we can look into that.
And will it be so humble, I appreciate the dumpster design.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Does the applicant have any other questions of the board at this time, before I open it up for public input?
No questions, we'll take your feedback, and I think the main concern here was having that discussion with Monroe County DOT.
Thank you. So before the, as you're exiting the podium there, before the public is invited up to speak, in the interest of letting everyone have an opportunity to address the board, we ask that members of the public keep your comments focused on the issues that the planning board can address, the proposed physical development of the site. Any comments related to other issues of the proposed project are outside of the planning board's legal discretion. Thank you. And with that, anyone who would like to address the board, I'll open up the public hearing. Carrie, I don't know how you're going to control the flow from the hallway, or?
Well, it's just us two, and my daughter just wants me to do the speaking because she's tired.
So we have enough, we can go ahead and just, if the, there's really no, I don't know that there's a sign-up sheet, so we may be going, do you have the sign-up sheet there for speaking?
I do.
We might be going just in the order that folks signed up.
So, yeah.
So I have a Fiona Patton.
Okay.
We'll go up together and I'll speak, okay? All right.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Rebecca Patton. I am a resident at 285 Rogers Parkway in the West Irondequoit Central School District. I'm joined by my daughter, Fiona Patton, who is 13 and going into 8th grade at Dake Junior High. We came to the meeting to discuss our philosophical disagreements with Chick-fil-A and their history in the past. However, since this is a planning board meeting, I will graciously defer my philosophical comments until September 15th, so thank you for clarifying that. I'd like to start by addressing Mr. Richards' comment about the center lane, and that brought up a lot of ideas. I will say that as a citizen and as somebody who is a driver, I have had several times where I've had to swerve in and out of Ridge Donut, which I think, first of all, is a much better contributor to our community than Chick-fil-A or any other chain business. However, I will continue with planning issues and traffic issues. So, in addition to the limited corridor space, again, I'm not an engineer, one of my next concerns is visibility of if I'm facing south as a driver, the visibility of the traffic light, especially towards midday, the glare from the sun can obstruct being able to see the light correctly. When the gentleman from Chick-fil-A did mention a flagpole with a possible 50-foot flag, my concern as a driver that depending on where it is placed, it could also interfere with the visual line of being able to see the stoplight. So in terms of whether or not changes are made to entrances and exits onto properties, there's still the being able to regulate the traffic lights and it still being functional for members of the community. Finally, I'd like to remind the board that Rochester General Hospital is still currently in expansion with the building of the Sands Constellation Critical Care Center. A member of the board did rightly bring up that Portland Avenue is a corridor for first responder and emergency vehicles. I think that because we are expanding access to those types of medical and emergency services in our community, there may be more traffic rightly going to Rochester General, and therefore, I think we as a community should be able to focus on what services and what needs are better for the community, rather than questionably adding businesses and additional fast food restaurants that have little value to Irondequoit, especially in terms of lower paying jobs, decreased safety in traffic, and just not conducive to Irondequoit's welcoming atmosphere. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to?
The next, Mary Hillard, but she was crossed off. How about Joe?
Sorry. Mary Hilliard is my mother, and she did exit the building. She will probably show up on September 15th in order to ask any questions.
Thank you.
Hang on, I'm sorry, Joe.
Here, toss it over here, Carrie, I'll do it. I'm closer.
Oh, that's okay.
Hello, my name is Joseph Olis, and I'm a member of the management staff at Ridge Donut Cafe. And we're here to address, we're not against Chick-fil-A as a company. We are concerned about the traffic and the things that have happened in Greece and that are still happening in Greece. I went for the first time on a Friday night to a Chick-fil-A, and there was some 40 cars in the drive-thru. Now, when we look at from what the plans that I have here, I'm not quite sure if they're exactly those plans, but the 20 cars that are stacked up in the drive-thru, that are staged in the drive-thru there, represent a very small part of that. But once you get outside of that part right there, now you're coming out and you're going right to, you could stack about another 20 cars from what measurements we did, roughly 20 cars. Now when you're out into, they have a lane with a little barrier that's going to have, when you're coming into Chick-fil-A, that's where the cars are going to be at. Those other two lanes that are supposed to be for Home Depot and for Wendy's, those cars coming down going southbound from Ridge Road coming down, they're going to try to turn in, make a right to turn into Chick-fil-A, which now they're going to clog those other two lanes up that are going to be for Home Depot and for Wendy's, in my opinion. And now when you have cars coming from 104 that are going to try to make a left, now you got to have the honor system. Who's going next? I came in, you came in, who was here first? And I just see that there's going to be some really big challenges here with that. And to say that it won't last that long, that's ridiculous, just to even say that. Because, our business depends on people coming to us. And I know for me that if there's a congested area, I might not go there. I might change my pattern for a little while until things calm down there. So we have concerns about the traffic there. And as far as the gentleman had mentioned about there would be staffing about 100 to 110 employees, but only 10 employees on at one time. I've never seen a business have that much staffing with only 10% of the staff being on at any given time. So that doesn't make much sense to me, let alone that where do the employees park when they're there? I was involved with a very large opening, and we had some 50 employees on at any given time, so we had to stage parking for the employees alone. Now, once you get out of that staging area for the drive-through, and you start heading through, and you start staging backed up into the parking lot, you lose about 30% of your parking spots in the parking lot because customers can't get in and out of those spots, because now it's consumed by somebody in the drive-through. There's about 30 spots that are along the walls here that once that starts going out that way, you lose those spots. So now where do we go? Now, I did see some articles that people were parking at the malls at Greece and then walking across 8 lanes. We only have 4 lanes. So it wouldn't be hard for me to believe that they're going to be trying to park in our spots across the street and walk over, in which I have no problem with any of that as long as it didn't interfere with us trying to make a living. And also during this pandemic time, you know, everyone has suffered a bit here, and we're no different than anyone else. So we're very concerned about this traffic, and it just doesn't seem like there's been enough addressed to concern this. Now, with Chick-fil-A being around since 1946, there has to be some marketing or some numbers there that could tell you in the third store in a single market, this is what we typically have. There's patterns for everything. So that would tell me, that would give us a rough idea instead of off the top of my head. I don't know anything about the chicken business. So all I know is what I see in Greece. And I just hate to have that happen to us here. In any direction you go, and you can't put a light there at the corner because 8 cars, you're on 104, 10 cars, you're at Ridge Road. And we already know what Dunkin' Donuts is doing. You know, so those are the concerns that we have as far as affecting us as a company. And also, we had big concerns about emergency responders for the hospital. Now, if you do manage to get a stack that's going past 104, heading southbound, that's a lot of cars. Now we're talking a neighborhood of 100 cars. You know, we're talking a lot of cars, and we don't really have anything that says this is what the third store of the market typically did around the country for Chick-fil-A. What did Chick-fil-A on the third store, what were their numbers? I don't hear anything about those facts, because then that tells me you've done your research, you know what the third store is going to do in that market within a reasonable number. It gives you an idea instead of just saying, I think. You know, so that would be nice to have, because I know they have the numbers. They have to have the numbers. This is not the first market that the third store went in. I'd like to see what markets, what did they do? What did the third store do? And even though, you know, this is almost ridiculous when you talk about the drive-through, what we're talking here is a very small part of that. When you get past that 20 cars, in which I was in the drive-through on Friday night and I could have counted about 35 cars. Now, we're talking over a year later that this store was open. So that right there doesn't really equate to what's really going to happen there. So in our opinion, I think there needs to be more disclosure from Chick-fil-A as far as what their numbers are. And if they're not, and their numbers represent what they're saying, then why wouldn't they disclose that stuff? And I think that was about it. Only other question we had was that it was an East Ridge Road address with a Portland Avenue entrance. That was my only other thing, was that Chick-fil-A's got an East Ridge Road address, but it's entered through Portland Avenue. Now, whatever that was grandfathered in or whatever happened there, I'm not sure, but it seemed like it would make an awful lot more sense if the lane went straight up on the side of Wendy's and an exit went right out there. It's a Ridge Road. Now you got all the staging in the world. You can stage 100 cars and it wouldn't matter. We're not against the staging. We're against the traffic jams and customers being prevented to come to our store. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, how do you spell your last name? I'm sorry.
That's okay. O-L-L-E-S.
E-S, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all I have that signed up on the sheets, just an FYI.
Anybody else who was not signed up who would like to address the board? So I will ask the board the same as the last case. Anybody opposed to keeping the public hearing open? I'm going to have him come back up, but I just want to make sure. I want to get that out of the way.
Excuse me, Chairman. You're keeping the public hearing open, you mentioned?
Yes.
Did you also want to acknowledge the written communication that the board received?
I was going to, yeah, let's do that now. I was going to do it after he spoke to those comments.
Oh, I
that were-
apologize. No, that probably makes more sense.
Okay, thank you. So could you, sir?
Tim, I think
Tim.
the chairman's actually speaking.
Couldn't see you there.
Yeah.
Would you like to please address some of the comments that were made?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the public comment tonight. In response to the first questions, I think we do have a little bit of homework to do with conversations with Monroe County DOT. That'll help address the issues with the center left-hand turn lane. I can assure you that the 50-foot flagpole is not going to interfere with site visibility lines for the travelers on the highway or the signalized intersection. But we'll certainly provide an update with the conversations with Monroe County DOT as things progress. In regards to Mr. Oil's comments, certainly understand the concern with grand opening traffic. It seemed like those comments were isolated to that honeymoon period where history has proven that this service is more popular the first couple months it's opened. And I'd like to just elaborate a little bit on Chick-fil-A's grand opening policies. So they'll bring in trained team members from across the country who are trained to operate and manage grand opening. They'll have additional team members in the kitchen, making sure meals are cooked, prepped, and delivered in adequate times at rapid pace. They'll have additional team members out in the drive-through lane taking orders. They'll have team members directing traffic at the access drives into and out of the site to make sure efficient circulation. We do have 20 stacking spaces within the drive-through, and we're smarter now than we were before Chick-fil-A entered the New York market. And the data on a third to market reference, upstate New York has proven that they like chicken more than a lot of places across this country, and the expectation was blown out of the water with some of the new openings in upstate New York. So since the Greece site was built, we've adapted. We've got a bigger site, more parking, more drive-through stacking based on data that was collected at Greece and at a similar Cicero facility. The maximum drive-through stacking that was observed at those two facilities was 18 and 19 cars. We've got 20 car stack, plus additional on-site capacity for maybe that honeymoon period that's going to exceed that additional stacking volume. The opportunity that we have here is if we ever did overflow off of our site, it's not going to be to Portland Avenue. It's going to be with our landlord and our neighbors, Home Depot, and that shared access drive between us two. So that's a service drive that we'll be able to coordinate with Home Depot for the grand opening activities. And if we need additional stacking space, that's where team members on site will be directing cars. And you can see on the plan that that's a couple hundred feet at a 2-lane wide additional stacking capacity. That capacity would far exceed what's expected here as a third to market opening. In Buffalo and Cheektowaga, we've successfully opened 2 restaurants, and we had grand opening concerns for that second restaurant, and they didn't need the stacking. The stacking never backed up beyond the site, and this has more stacking than what that site did. We're all going to be here watching when Henrietta opens. They're going to be opening here hopefully before the end of the year. We can certainly watch and see what happens, and if an abundant amount of stacking is observed, we can certainly work with the building department, the local police authority, to have appropriate plan in place for issue of the building permit for this project in that first 1-month, 2-month period. So that's going to be a good tell as a second to market, and then this would be the third. So do we know exactly what it's going to look like? No. Do we know it's probably going to be less than what was experienced at Greece? Yeah. Is it going to be less than what was experienced at Henrietta? Yeah, probably. So that's going to be a good telltale of what we can expect here, and Chick-fil-A is certainly going to have team members on site to make sure that grand opening traffic does not interfere with other businesses in the community and Portland and East Ridge Road. Thank you.
I have a question. There are going to be temporary modifications to the site plan for the grand opening?
There could be if it was warranted, but I don't see the need for it because we've got that additional stacking capacity with this plan. We designed for that up front with the extra width leading up to that drive-through entrance, That's 30 feet wide. That can have 2 lanes of additional stacking leading up to that drive-through. And to the point that was made about losing those parking spaces, if the stacking is backed up beyond those spaces, is that's where team members are going to park. Your employees are going to park there and occupy those spaces to free up the rest of the spaces for the center. And you're going to have 10 people on a shift. But during grand opening, when you've got 20 other team members who flew in from elsewhere, they're going to stay at a local hotel and be shuttled to the restaurant to not occupy the parking spaces that are on site.
I have a question. Yeah, like all the math works on the paper. Like seems like this should work, but that's probably the same thing they said at Greece, and it's definitely the same thing they said at Dunkin' Donuts. And then it happened, and it didn't. I mean, if the planning board in Greece knew that what was going to happen, it wouldn't have gone through. So, I'm wondering if it's possible for us to see some type of contingency plan. That there may be some modifications to the site plan made on a temporary basis as a backup for if the numbers on the paper don't work, so that we know that, sure, it seems like it should work on paper, and sure, this lines up. But if for some reason it doesn't, there's a backup plan, which can immediately be called into action and can stack up these cars that we don't think that are going to come, but might come, and we have a backup plan.
We can look into that for grand opening, for that surcharge of what that backup plan might look like. But I don't think it's going to be any better than the plan we have now. This plan is an involvement since December, January. There's been a lot of background that has gone into this plan that you see today. That drive-through entrance, the location of it, I don't think there's a better location that's going to increase the stacking capacity.
Sure, and like on the other hand, right, I don't want to force someone to overbuild a site to a capacity that's not necessary, to pave more that's not necessary, that even if it were necessary may only be needed for a couple of months, and then you're stuck with all this extra pavement. But if there were a contingency plan that could be activated on short notice, that might save you from building a site that's designed to handle something that's only going to happen a couple of months, but then can be used long term if needed to be, if this doesn't die down. I mean, I hear what people are saying about Greece. I mean, I after this came in, I drove by and was like, what's going on? And every time I go, it's been full out to the street. And I'm sure that the traffic study said that wasn't going to happen.
So you're right, we're smarter than we were when Greece came in to see what the demand is in this economy. To me, this site location is not even comparable to Greece, just because of where it lies. Greece is very constrained with 3 frontages. It abuts a residential district. It's a very tight site. There's a retaining wall in the back. It's 1.2 acres. This is 2.2 acres. 55 spaces versus 68 spaces. We've learned, we've adapted, and that's what we're here to get. And I think our contingency plan in this case is the shared access drive between us and Home Depot. That's our contingency plan, and that's going to be during peak periods of the day. It's not going to be breakfast. It's not going to be late at night. It's going to be that lunch rush hour when Home Depot is not getting deliveries. That's a service drive. We're going to be able to coordinate with them and keep that contingency plan outside of the public right away.
So are we able to ask to see the contingency plan as part of the site plan, or how would that work?
Well, can I ask one question that maybe helps this conversation, maybe not, I don't know. Do you have, or can you provide very tangible numbers, both from a grand opening scenario and from a peak hour on, let's call it after the honeymoon period ends, as far as what Greece and Cicero are seeing queues in the drive-through at peak hour, say at dinner time, 5, 6 o'clock? Do you have those numbers? Because I'm just scaling off what could theoretically queue and not block anything. And I'm coming up with some pretty significant numbers of cars that can queue within parking lot including one area where it wouldn't even really impact hardly any traffic because of the 30-foot driveway. So, I mean, if we're talking about realistic numbers being 40, I don't know, I'm talking out loud here. That can easily be accommodated between the shared driveway and their interior site. If we're talking about numbers that are 80, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
So I think that data would be very helpful to help us have this conversation.
Yeah, so in that traffic impact assessment, there was, stacking data collected at both Greece and Cicero. 18
My
18 and
recollection
19
is
cars
that,
stacked.
yeah, and I think what we're struggling with is, I too have been to that Greece location, not anywhere near the beginning of its opening, I mean, year plus later, and I'm pretty sure, as the one resident discussed or mentioned, I'm pretty sure there were well more than 18 cars there stacked when I was there in the last few months. So it's hard for us, I think, to understand those numbers when you're saying 18, and I think we've all seen versions of that have been beyond that. So I think that's what I'm struggling with right now.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and then if there were a backup plan, it wouldn't matter because I would know that no matter what happened, we'd be covered.
Again, I think we can queue. I mean, if you jammed this site, I can queue 60 cars in this site, just scaling on a piece of paper and tracing the car, which is a lot of cars to scale for a drive-through on the site. And maybe if we had what we felt was more realistic numbers and data, we might believe that. But hearing 20 or 18 seems hard to fathom with what we've seen elsewhere. Maybe it's correct, but it seems very hard to fathom.
And I've seen 20 cars in other drive-throughs in the area, and they're not Chick-fil-A. I mean, probably some of them are going to not go to Wendy's, and they're going to go to Chick-fil-A instead, right? So it's not like they're more users. But I'm just saying, like, even other places, there can be times when there's 20 people waiting at Wendy's, 20 people waiting at Popeyes, 20, of course, some of them are not going to go that place anymore, but I don't think it's going to be wild different.
Mr. Huber, you asked the question of council. Do you want to get it?
Well, as far as a contingency plan, if there are, and I think this gets to Spencer's point as well, if there are specific issues related to the site plan that you would like to see a contingency plan for, I think that's an appropriate ask. As far as just a generic contingency plan, I don't, I don't see how that could be a regulation that the applicant could, meet as far as just an arbitrary contingency plan. But if there are specific items that you would like to see a contingency plan address, then I think that would be appropriate.
And I think knowing some of those queuing numbers, both during grand opening, honeymoon period, and post, tell us what we need a contingency plan for or not. Right. In my opinion.
Another question about the amount of time it takes to place an order and receive it and leave. I mean, we've talked about numbers of cars, but how about the speed in which they're serviced?
Yeah, so that's what Chick-fil-A really prioritizes with utilizing team members in the drive-through. So they're able to take orders ahead of the menu boards to get that into the kitchen and get the meal prepped to be ready to go to really expedite that service. So you're absolutely right. It all goes hand in hand to maximizing their operationals in the kitchen to get that speed of service out to get those cars stacking in. The actual time it takes for a meal prep, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I know they try to get cars moving through the drive-through as fast as possible.
I'm not asking for a meal prep. I'm asking from the time that you take the order until the time he drives off this. Is there no estimate at that? Because if I'm sitting in a stack of 60 cars and it takes 20 minutes each car, I'm probably not going to be there.
Yeah, right. There's a certain limit of how long you're willing to wait. I can get an average, time it takes from when somebody orders their meal to the pickup, and that's going to be fairly consistent across, different restaurants. And I would assume that would be included in the stacking observations that were provided from Greece and Cicero. They went out and observed, those stacking spaces in those drive-throughs, and that's taken into account, how fast those team members are getting people through. So that kind of goes hand in hand of what was observed out there was the 18 and the 19 spaces. And both restaurants utilize team members in the parking or in the drive-through stacking to expedite the service, so.
Thank you.
I have another question about the stacking numbers that you're referencing from Greece and Cicero and so on.
Yeah.
Is that data that SRF engineers actually obtained, or is that just information from Chick-fil-A providing information to SRF?
No, SRF was on site conducting traffic counts
Okay.
and observations at
I mean,
those
that does change the thought a little bit on it.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's not coming, not that I don't trust Chick-fil-A, I'm just saying that it comes from a
Sure.
third-party engineer
Right.
is better. If it's at all possible, and I understand travel is difficult and so on, I know SRF has a local office. If it's at all possible for them to physically come to the next meeting, I think that would be tremendously helpful to everyone.
There are certain, obviously, travel precautions in place, but
Understand, yep.
I'll ask that
Yep.
question.
Do they, I know, like Mr. Palermo was bringing up concerns about the wait time. Are any of these spots going to be designated for, I don't know if they use the system, but I've been at drive-through restaurants where I've ordered and I'm like to the window or something and my order isn't ready, but the one behind it is. So instead of me clogging up, they'll say, go over to spot 2 and we'll bring it over to you when it's ready. Is that a system that they use, or what is?
They do, but they use team members in the drive-through to do it versus, a pull-ahead parking space.
Okay.
So they'll have runners of physical people, going up to the window, getting their meal and delivering it to the car behind, that
And since the
individual.
lane here is too wide, they can.
And then the
always
bypass
exit.
lane, they could exit
Got
around.
it.
Yep.
That's correct.
Any other comments? So we've left the public hearing open, if you could stay at the podium. Michelle, we did receive some correspondence. Could you reference the correspondence? And also there was a petition that was delivered to the board.
Yes, actually, I have them both in front of me, so Michelle can type and not have to worry about reading as well. So there is a petition that was actually addressed to the Irondequoit Planning Board, and I'll just read the introduction statement. In October, Chick-fil-A plans to seek approval from our town board to adapt the former Staples building to a new restaurant. Although the prospect of a new business moving into Irondequoit is positive, we, the undersigned, strongly urge the town board to vote against approval of the permit as noted in case PB 2020-08-3. Just for this board's clarification, the town board is not voting on your PB case. There's a separate application before the town board. So there's just maybe a cross-reference issue in the petition. But that aside, they go on to make, share, and you all have received a copy of this petition in writing and also via email. You have it in your records. They are questioning, and I can read it verbatim or just summarize. They raise some issues that are not pertaining to this planning board site plan review and what your legal purview is as a board, but certainly you have that information in front of you. They go on to say, in addition to problematic charitable giving, we believe that the increased traffic will also be problematic due to its proposed location between two major intersections, East Ridge Road 104. There simply is not room for traffic to overflow into the street as it is continuously has done in Greece. This will make an already crowded stretch of road even more dangerous, potentially requiring additional town resources to respond to traffic issues and vehicle accidents. And I will note that there are, I'm going to go to that very end. There were 179 names on that petition, and rather than reading those all into the record, they are in your packets, and you did receive them electronically. I will point out that you'll see one of the signed petitions was fictitious, but it was an electronic petition.
I think in this time of COVID, it was probably a very good way to get the information to us.
Yeah, and that was the stated intent. The individual who inquired wanted to ensure social distancing and wanted to make sure that the boards that had applications before them had information and had the folks had the opportunity to provide that information to them. Additionally, you all saw that there was another written communication sent via email. This was addressed to the planning board email that was forwarded to you as well, and you have it in writing as well, or in print copy. And that was received by Michael Wask. Or Wask, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. But that's part of your, I'm just sharing that, so that's part of the record for the planning board.
Thank you. So I'll just ask the applicant, considering you're still waiting for information to come back, are you in favor, are you requesting to table this motion to the next meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, do we do seeker? Is it a type 2?
No, so we don't have all the information
Have all the
needed to render a seeker determination of significance. One of the major aspects that this environmental review will be exploring would be the traffic impact. And so since that information is still under review by Monroe County DOT, and our town engineer hasn't had an opportunity to review it and provide comment to town staff and to this board, that'll be something that we address at a future meeting.
Okay. So I'll make a motion in regards to PB 2020-08-3 that it be tabled to the next meeting to wait the seeker information and the other items from the Monroe County Department of Transportation and the other items that were asked by the board. So I have a second?
Second.
I think Mary got it. With that, thank you. Look forward to seeing you. We also
We need a vote for that motion.
Oh, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstains? Thank you. And you can also, we're going to have another workshop before the next meeting too, so if any other information needs to be further, you're more than welcome to attend.
Sounds great. Thank you all for your time this evening. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd make a motion, Mr. Chair, regarding the minutes of June 22nd, the workshop notes from July 13th, and the minutes from the meeting on July 27th, that we accept those and approve them as presented.
I'll second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstains.
Mr. Chairman, before you adjourn, I just want to remind the board that next month for the September meeting,
Is a long wait.
well, the zoning board is being held on September 14th. The planning board workshop will be 9/21, and the meeting will be 9/28. So it's week after week. It's consecutive, just so you're aware.
Michelle, you gotta take that up with my wife.
Your birthday?
Yeah, she'll get right on
No,
that.
she likes the weekend before.
Oh,
Wow. She does like me, Bert.
Michelle,
Remember September what?
I thought you were gonna.
what's the dates you need?
She'll let us know again.
with that, do I have a motion to
Wait,
adjourn?
Mike.
Did somebody say that?
I did that.
Mike?
Oh.
We already did it.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT, Government Access. hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT Government Access.